to our overall health, and that is mental wellness, specifically how we can manage our daily anxieties and our stressful lives, maybe due to personal circumstances or maybe due to changes because of the pandemic. So we're all here today to be reminded that it's not just our physical bodies we need to take care of, but our mental well-being as well, which is, of course, part of how we can achieve overall optimal well-being. So here at Herbalife, of course, that's what we want to promote to everyone. We want everyone to live happier and healthier lives. So to start, may I call on our Senior Director, Sub-Region Head, and General Manager of Herbalife Nutrition Philippines, Sir Sridhar Rajagopalan. Sir Sridhar, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. It's a very exciting day, So I want to welcome all the participants who are here right here, all my media friends, my colleagues from Philippines and also from Asia Pacific. Thank you very much for joining. I know it's on holiday, and we are having this program, but we planned this program a long time ago, so we didn't want to change the program. We want to have it today. So thank you very much to all my media friends who have joined today. But as Anna already spoke to you, and she shared that we've been speaking on various different topics, right? But today's topic is very unique, very different, okay? I want my media friends to really understand this topic. And, this is all about mental wellness in today's world. And I'm sure that, you will really enjoy it, because today our special guest speaker is a leading expert, So he is also part of the Global Fitness Advisory Board member of Herbalife Nutrition. And he's got vast experience on this. And he has been doing a lot of trainings for our staff also. And we have learned a lot. And from his books, amazing learning. So, having him here in today's this particular forum, I'm sure that he will add a lot of value to our understanding the mental wellness in today's world. Okay, so I will not waste my time. I want to thank our Shamal Vallabhji, our guest speaker. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. I'm sure our media will really, really enjoy your talk. And I'm sure they will have some questions, and I'm sure you can answer all those questions. So welcome. And we would have loved to have this in-person event, and we could have traveled to different cities, but the times are different. So we'll have to do it everything through the Zoom calls. But still, you could add a lot of value to all our media friends who are right now here. So with that, I want to express my gratitude to my team for organizing this and for my media partners. Thank you very much. And let's have a great time with our speaker. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anna.
Thank you, Sir Sridhar, for your opening message. Okay, before we proceed to the next segment, we have a quick poll for everyone. So we just want to get a feel of our media attendees this morning. Have you experienced being anxious lately? Okay, so let's see. Okay, so majority of you have shared that they have experienced being anxious lately. So, the reality is that anxiety affects everyone. No one is immune to that. So we all go through challenging times. It's a matter of knowing how we can manage, how we can better cope with the things that, stress us out or cause our anxiety. And that's what we will learn from our guest speaker today. So now may I call on our Herbalife Nutrition Philippines Marketing Manager, Ms. Marie Segismundo, to finally introduce our guest speaker. Over to you, Ms. Marie.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining us in July e-wellness tour. And despite the fact that it's a holiday today, you will never regret this day because you will learn a lot from our speaker. So let me introduce, it's my honor to introduce him to all of you. He is a South African sports scientist and a performance coach with 18 years experience in high-performance sporting environments. He is also the author of 4 books on sports science and motivation, a TEDx speaker, recipient of the IMK Australia India Youth Dialogue Fellowship, And he's the Men's Health Trainer of the Year in 2014. He's also the organizing committee member of United Nations Change Makers Conference. And ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome one of Herbalife Nutrition's Global Fitness Advisory Board member, Mr. Shayamal Valyakshi.
Hello, all my friends at the media. Thank you so much, Sridhar, Marie, Anna, for putting this together. I'm super excited to be speaking to you, and I hope you're excited to be here, and we can learn from each other, and I can learn from you through the questions you ask, through the perspectives that you put on the table. I think it'll be an exciting 40 to 45 minutes, and I love, obviously, speaking at all Herbalife events. For those of you who don't know what I do, I'm a sports scientist, and a sports scientist is someone who looks at performance enhancement with respect to professional athletes. So I spent almost 20 years training Olympians, championship winning teams, individual athletes. I travel on the ATP tour, PGA tour, all sorts of stuff like that. I also coach a lot of CEOs and executives on what is a peak performance mindset. I come from a academic background of sports science with a double master's in clinical and organizational psychology. And I've also spent about 3 years living as a monk in an ashram. So I bring in a lot of ancestral wisdom, and you'll see that in the talks that I do. Now, why this topic's really, really important is because, like 70% of you pointed out in the poll today, a lot of people are suffering with anxiety. And that's really and truly the reality of the situation. We've been locked down for the last 15 months. There's an overwhelming feeling of anxiety, frustration. People are being emotionally triggered. There's a lot of loss. There's bereavement. No one has lived through a pandemic, so no one's got any viable guidance on what we need to do. Everyone's really testing the waters in some shape and form. That's the reality of the situation right now. Okay, I know this reality because I am coaching people through this reality every single day. Now, what's really interesting for me coming from the world of peak performance and high performance is that, with the exception of being locked in one space, all of the emotions that you're dealing with is a part of my day-to-day life. My athletes and myself are constantly anxious. We're constantly dealing with things we don't know how to process. We constantly do not know what our competition is doing, where they're training. People are highly triggered because we work in an exceptionally high pressure situation. That's our reality. And my job is to help people thrive in that ecosystem. Now, that's where it gets really exciting today, because I'm sure every single person you've ever spoken to or you've ever heard over the last 15 months has spoken to you from a mindset of what to do to really survive. How do you survive anxiety? How do you survive this mental health issues? How do you survive all of this? I'm not interested in survival. I'm interested in thriving. Okay, that's the entire world that I operate on. My job is to push someone outside their comfort zone. My job is to tap into their fullest potential. And when people ask me what I do, I tell them that I upgrade your human operating system, which is your body and your mindset. That's my thing. That's what I do. So today, I am thoroughly excited to be able to share this with you. Okay, and right up front, I want to say that I want to ask a question. You know, how do you think it's possible for someone to evolve or thrive in a world where there's uncertainty, where there's fear, there's anxiety, there's anxiousness, people are being emotionally triggered, you have no idea what's happening in the future? How do you think, if you had to give one word to how someone, or one phrase to how someone would thrive in an ecosystem like this, what would it be? Maybe you can drop a few messages in the comment section and we can see what your thoughts are before we move ahead. Anyone has any idea? What would be that word or that phrase that you would use? Any ideas? There's a few popping up. Okay. Breathe. Someone's saying breathe. Someone's having faith. Okay, cool. The media, it's only our Herbalife people who are chatting. So the media either don't know the answer or know the answer, but that's perfectly okay, you know. So the answer, right, is radical adaptability. That's the secret. If there's one phrase you want to remember right now, it's called radical adaptability. And that's what I teach. I teach people what is the mindset and what are the conditions to be radically adaptable in any single ecosystem. And I'll explain why that is so fundamentally important. Now, moving on today, I'm going to teach a few things. And I would generally advise you to keep some paper and pen close by, because I will define a few terms. I will drop a few wonderful pieces of insight. We're going to do a little bit of a breathwork practice to help you see the impact of what is the impact of breathwork on your mind. And I'll teach you how to transition that from the stillness of that practice to a high performance environment. This is what I do with professional cricket players, tennis players, everyone. So I hope you're really excited. I hope you're ready to absorb this, because this is going to be absolutely groundbreaking. Now, before I move ahead, I want to define a few words. And these are words that you've heard for the last probably 15 months. Words are uncertainty, insecurity, unfavorable outcome, fear. These are the common words we've heard. Every single one of us have heard this for the last 15 months. But what does that really mean? Okay. And I think starting here, it's going to become really insightful for you. Okay. Now, the first word is uncertainty. Whenever someone spoke about uncertainty, they always layered it with a negative emotion. They always laid it with fear. They always used uncertainty to really and truly define something that's scary. You know this because there's a good chance in the media you even use the same word, okay, and you've used it in that context as well. Now, uncertainty is the situation that exists. Uncertainty is when there's a situation and you're unsure of what that outcome is. That is uncertainty. But every single thing in the world, and I'll explain this a little further as we move on, has two perspectives. The external perspective is what's happening outside of you, and there's an internal perspective, which is your mind and your mindset or your perception of that. Now, if we apply our internal perspective, our mindset to uncertainty, what happens? Well, if you apply your mindset to something, you have a choice. Your choice is to either accept that or to reject it. Now, when you look at the word uncertainty, when you cannot accept uncertainty, the emotion that will arise from there is fear. Okay. When there's uncertainty and you cannot accept it, the emotion that will rise is fear. Okay. And this is the fear that most of us are most familiar with, because that's the fear we've often associated with that word. But there's a flip side to this. When there's uncertainty and you choose to accept uncertainty, then life or that situation becomes an adventure. Okay. Remember that. Okay, when you accept uncertainty, life becomes an adventure, or that situation becomes an adventure. And how you choose to move forward, accepting it or not accepting, is entirely at your disposal. You can choose this at any time. The second word is fear. Okay, now fear is not an emotion that is linked to the present. It's an emotion that's linked to the future. We're only fearful of a situation that is happening in the future. Only when the mind is projecting into the future will the emotion of fear be present. Now, some people often say, something happened in the past and I'm scared. Yeah, you're not scared of what happened in the past. You're scared of the past repeating itself in the future. That's where the fear comes in. You know, as long as you know what is happening and as long as it's done, there cannot be fear present. Fear is the trauma. When we look at the fear associated with post-traumatic stress disorder, it's that those people who are going through the trauma are expecting or fearful of that situation repeating itself. Fear is an emotion linked to the future. And this is where mindfulness or breathwork really helps, or even gratitude as a practice, because gratitude counterbalances the what is happening in the future with what is happening in the here and the now. And this is why it's so fundamentally important for every single one of us to be able to balance that. We need to look into the future to give ourselves direction of how we're moving forward, but we also need to come back into the here and now to ground our energy, ground our reality, and really give our neuromuscular and neurobiological systems a chance to break down and a chance to really relax. So that's what the feeling of fear is. The third thing is an unfavorable outcome. Okay, now what is an unfavorable outcome? An unfavorable outcome is there was uncertainty. Uncertainty means you don't know what's going to happen to a situation in the future. Unfavorable outcome is when that which you didn't know was not in your favor. It happened, it was the worst case situation that materialized. Okay. Now, even there are two perspectives. There's an external perspective and an internal perspective. Okay. The external perspective is obviously the situation and the result of it. The internal perspective is how you perceive that outcome. Now, once again, you can accept it or you can reject that unfavorable outcome. Now, what happens? Well, if you cannot accept an unfavorable outcome, the emotion that will be born and the emotion that will be present is an emotion called anger. Okay. You will be highly angry because the situation isn't in your favor and you refuse to accept it. If you do accept an unfavorable outcome, and it happens to us in our lives many, many times, maybe the situations are not so grave, so we brush it around. But when you accept an unfavorable outcome, okay, then you cultivate tolerance. Tolerance is what gets cultivated in you. And tolerance is a very, very important emotion as we navigate what is the unknown. Okay. Remember that. Tolerance and humility are the two most important emotions as we venture forth to navigate the unknown. And the last word that I want to break down for you is the word insecurity. I seem to be hearing this word a lot as well. And I'm sure these four words, you've all used it in some shape and form, barring unfavorable outcome. I'm sure everyone's used uncertainty, fear, and insecurity when you spoke about the pandemic. Now, I don't want to define insecurity for you, but I'm going to do something a little bit more important. I'm going to give you the two reasons why insecurity will always be present. Okay, and it's very important for you to understand this. The first reason insecurity is present is because of a lack of control over a situation. When you feel that you don't have control over a situation, insecurity will fundamentally be present. Okay, now there's a problem with control. There's a massive problem with control because control means you want to try to keep things as fixed as possible. That's what control means. It's within your control. It's fixed. You have it all within your power. But the truth is that nothing in the world is fixed. The Buddhists use the word impermanence. Things are ever evolving. Things are ever changing every single second. In Buddhism, they also say you can never enter the same river twice, which means that once you walk into a river, that river is not the same river anymore as the waters flow. Emotions flow, people change, cells die. There's no two situations are exactly the same. So it's impossible to control any situation. Now, what control does is it creates a false sense of perception or a false reality around the situation. You think that false reality is you think I have everything under control, but you don't, right? And the danger comes in when you think you have something under control that you don't, because everything is ever evolving. So what happens is you become dull to the changing variables in that ecosystem. And that will ultimately become your downfall. You see, let me play it out for you real slowly. You want to control a situation, but you cannot control a situation that's changing every single second. Okay. Now, the mere fact that you want to control that situation, you're bringing a fixed mindset into something that cannot be controlled. When you do, even if it's for a microsecond, when you do think I have this under control, then what happens is you stop looking at all the variables that are changing in that ecosystem because you think you got it under control. But it is changing whether you like it or not. And your ultimate downfall will become not the control or the lack of it. The ultimate downfall becomes your inability to see what is changing in that ecosystem. And I start off this talk by saying, if you want to thrive in any ecosystem, you need radical adaptability. Radical adaptability, right, and control cannot go hand in hand. When someone's controlling something, they cannot radically adapt to an ever-changing situation. Right. Only when you approach a situation with the acute understanding that it's changing on every level, right, can you bring adaptability to that situation. Okay. So the first reason insecurity is present is because of a lack of control over that situation. The second reason insecurity is always present is because of what we call a fear of replacement. Okay. And this is very real for many of us. You fear being replaced in your relationship, being replaced in your position, replaced in your company, replaced in your job, all of this. When there's a fear of being replaced, then that insecurity will creep in. Now, very often, as a psychologist, experience has taught me that the perception of a situation and the reality of the situation, there's a gap that exists in between. In that gap, that fear of replacement is often the hiding place of it. And the one way to close the gap is effective communication. It's just to be able to communicate effectively around that, to be able to ask questions with empathy, with compassion, with all of these situations, to be able to bridge that gap in communication. If you bridge the gap in communication, the fear of being replaced will cease to exist. Okay. Now, I've only just begun and I've given you a few definitions, but today, what am I actually going to talk to you about? I'm going to spend the next 25 minutes or so giving you the three things that are needed to succeed in any single environment. I'm going to give you the most important mindset that you need to cultivate, and I'm going to give you the one X factor that you need. Okay. So the three most important variables to thrive in any environment. Okay. I'm going to give you the most important mindset to cultivate, and then I'm going to give you the one X factor that you need to cultivate. Okay. Now, starting with the three variables, there are three C's. Okay. So the first C that we need to thrive in any environment is composure. Okay. Composure is vitally important. Now, I start off by speaking and telling you that every single situation on the planet has two perspectives. It has an external perspective and it has an internal perspective. An external perspective is when you're looking at everything happening outside of you. And how do you recognize if your mind is focused on what is external? It's very simple. You're feeling anxious, you're feeling nervous, you're feeling like you're being unfairly treated, if you're feeling disrespected, if you're feeling like you're not being heard, if you're feeling like there's unrealistic expectations on you, okay, if you feel like you're not being seen, if you're blaming others for every single situation, if you feel that your life is in this situation because of something else that happened, then your mind is only looking externally. Okay, when you look externally, you make yourself a victim of that situation and you render yourself completely powerless. Okay. The flip side of that is what's called an internal perspective. The internal perspective is when the mind is able to calm itself down, when the mind is able to perceive a situation rationally, when the mind is able to ask questions like, is there a way I can communicate how I feel with compassion and empathy? Is there a way I can bring love to the situation? Is this situation just my version of reality or is it reality? What is it that I can do to bridge the gap in here? How is it that I can also think about the others in this situation as opposed to thinking about myself? When you are able to ask these questions, then that is the internal aspect of your mind that's flourishing. Now, many of you spoke about feeling anxious, feeling stressed. 70% of you said that you're having these emotions right now. Now, the secret is how do you switch from what is external to what is internal? Well, the secret to that is really and truly your breath. Okay, your breath can neurobiologically and neurophysiologically switch the mind from being stressed about what's happening on the outside to have a state of calm on the inside. Okay, and I'm going to show you how it does that. But this is what you need to know about your breath. Your breath has two components. It has an inhalation and it has an exhalation. The inhalation component of your breath is linked to what we call the sympathetic nervous system, which drives your flight and fight response. So when you're anxious, when you're feeling panicky, when you're feeling stressed, when you're fearful, your breathing will be short and rapid. You'll be think of what happens when you have a panic attack. And when the body is calm and composed, and when you're thinking clearly, there's a stillness that is in your mind. Okay, that stillness opens up the gateway to the options available to you. Now, for you to bring radical adaptability to any situation to be able to thrive, you need options to be available to you. Okay, those options only come available to you when the mind is thinking clearly. So we need to be able to understand how do we get our mind to think clearly. And like I said, the secret is in your breath. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to take you through a very quick breathwork practice where I'm going to teach you how to still the mind. Okay, we're going to practice a little bit of breathing. Okay, a little bit of music. We're going to breathe in through the nose for about 4 seconds, and then we're going to breathe out through the mouth for about 8 seconds. Okay, I'm going to do this for a few minutes, and for the next few minutes, I want you to just wear whichever chair you're sitting on. I want you to just sit on the front half of that chair. Keep your spine erect but not too rigid. Okay, you can place your hands on your thighs. You can close your eyes. You don't need to be looking at me for this practice for the next 3 or 4 minutes. But I welcome you to just surrender to this experience and just see what I'm talking about when I say your breath is the gateway to being able to perceive things and feel things completely different. Okay, so let me play a little bit of music. Good. So close your eyes wherever you are. Just sit nice and upright like that. Good. So very quickly, whilst you're in stillness, I want you to just draw your awareness to any emotions you have right now. What is it that's coming into your mind right now? Just stay with your breath, a few more seconds, and you're doing amazingly well. Take a deep breath in and let it all out with a small sigh. One more deep breath in. Let it all out. Perfect. And whenever you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and just get back. Okay. So this was just 5 minutes or so. Okay. And I'm sure you felt a little bit of a difference in your body. Okay. Now, the secret is to be able to transition that stillness from here into your daily life. Okay. Now, what made this practice very easy for us right here, right now, was that a lot of variables were in our control. Okay. And all of these variables, like the music, like the guidance, like the ambience, your room, it was a safe space, it was protected. And this is why your body was able to achieve a level of stillness. The problem is in the real world where you're working, many of the variables are beyond your control. And we perceive these variables through our 5 senses, okay? Which means that each sense organ could provide what is potentially enhance an experience or potentially distract you from experience. And the more you cultivate this breath work as a practice, the more you can transition this to a high pressure situation where the variables are beyond your control. And that's the secret to composure. So that's the very, very first C. Okay. The second C to thriving in any situation is called competence. Okay. Now, competence means how good you are at something. In the world of professional sport, I define a strength as a skill that gives you a competitive advantage in a high-performing environment. That means that if it is a strength, it needs to be easily executable, it needs to bring a level of enjoyment, and it needs to bring a level of success. So that's a strength. Okay. And when you have a competence, you have a strength that you can execute in a high-pressure situation. What is a high-pressure situation? A high-pressure situation is a situation where the margin for error is minuscule and the penalty for failure is high. So the Olympic Games are about to start in the next 24, 48 hours. That's a high-pressure situation. Why? Because you have 1/100th of a second to make a mistake, and if you do make that mistake, the penalty is so high that the world will not know who you are, or you'll have to come back after 4 years and try again. That's a very high penalty for failure. Okay, so that is a high pressure situation. Now, competence is the skills you bring to a high pressure situation to thrive. Okay. Now, most of us are aware of competence through research done by a scientist called Eric Anders, who published the 10,000 hour rule, which Malcolm Gladwell made famous in the book called Outliers, sorry. And 10,000 hours was what was required for mastery. But there's another beautiful research article that shows that if you practice anything for 200 hours, you'll be better than 80% of the people who are doing that same skill. Just 200 hours. And 200 hours is literally about 2 months of dedicated practice. In 2 months of dedicated practice, you'll be better than 80% of people practicing that exact same thing. That's amazing, isn't it? 200 versus 10,000 hours. Now, competence is a very important word for me in a high performance environment. And there's a piece of research that we use quite often, and it's called the sigmoid curve. The sigmoid curve means that every single skill or strength that you have, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in journalism, whatever you have, that skill or strength has a half-life. It can only last so long. Okay. Your ability to increase that half-life is directly proportional to your coachability. That's the word you need to remember, coachability. Coachability is how willing are you to change what is working to make it last longer and get you better results. Okay, are you willing to learn from someone? Are you willing to change it so that you can get better? Coachability is the only way to increase the sigmoid curve, and it's the only way to thrive in a radically changing ecosystem. Okay, so the second C is really and truly competence. Okay, and the third C that we all need to thrive in any situation is confidence. Okay, now confidence can come in 2 ways. It can come from motivation. So you have a good motivational leader who will give you some amazing words of inspiration. But really and truly, that level of confidence only brings about what is called a chemical change in your brain. And a chemical change in your brain is very short-lived. It could last anywhere from a couple hours to about 48 to 72 hours at the max. And we've all known this and we've all seen this. You look at someone's motivational Instagram post, or you watch a video and I'm inspired to go and train or change or do something. And literally 24 hours later, you're back to normal. That's because words bring what is called a chemical change in the brain. For you to bring a structural change in your brain, you need habit cultivation. Okay? You need to be doing a practice repetitively over and over. And that comes from competence. That comes from the confidence needed to succeed, comes from competence. Because as you practice a skill, you get success. Success breeds that competence, breeds that confidence. And these three are what come together to help you thrive in any single environment. Competence, confidence, and composure. Okay. Now, this is the interesting thing. You could have competence and you could have confidence, and that doesn't guarantee that you'll succeed in any environment. Okay. You need composure. Composure is the secret sauce that brings these two variables together and helps you actually utilize it. We've seen so many people crumble under pressure, and they're highly competent. We've seen it. We've seen their track record. They're super successful, but they just have an inability to succeed in a high pressure situation. That's because they just don't have the composure in that situation. They don't know how to manage their anger, their anxiety, their fear, and their skills really and truly don't get a chance to flourish in that ecosystem. They don't get a chance to thrive. Why? Because when you're anxious, your brain isn't open to the options available to you. It's very tunnel vision. It's closed. It has one track mind and it's only going to execute according to that. Okay. Now, in my other talks, you can check them out on like Instagram and YouTube. I talk about flow states and how do you keep your mind open to flow and to perceive ever-changing variables in a high-pressure situation. And it's a bit complex and long for us to go into it right now. But those three steps that I wanted to talk about was composure, confidence, and competence. Now, the one mindset that I wanted to talk about, and this is something that I cultivate and I try to cultivate in every single person that I work with. Okay, it's called a student mentality. That's the mindset you all want to really and truly absorb and embrace. Now, why is it that I ask everyone to become a student? Well, a few things about a student that we should all appreciate. One is that a student is always willing to learn. And a student is always willing to learn from anyone who can teach them anything about that subject. Okay, so that's the first thing that is amazing about students. The second thing that's amazing is that students are willing to be proven wrong, but they're brave enough to always challenge what is existing. A student will challenge what is existing, but he doesn't mind being proven wrong. A student is completely unperturbed by failure. They refuse to let failure become their identity. Students fail every single day. They just get up and keep going, which means they also have a great bounceability factor. That willingness to bounce back and try again is very, very high in students. Okay. Students have a very high willingness to collaborate and work as a team. And most importantly, students are willing to share success. Okay. They're willing to work together and they're willing to say that this is a team effort. And somewhere, as we grow in this corporate world, as we move up the ranks of corporate life, we lose all of this. We lose our willingness to want to learn, or we learn secretly. Okay. We lose our willingness to want to be proven wrong. We lose our willingness to want to share success and to collaborate with people. That fear comes in, which prevents us from bouncing back. It prevents us from even trying. And if we happen to try and become, and that fails, then failure becomes our identity. All of the beautiful things that are embraced with the student are lost as we move into the corporate world. Now, there is one way that you can bring it back. And the way to bring it back is by calling yourself a student every single day. If you're in the media, say, I'm a student of journalism. Right. I keep saying I'm a student of psychology, and I'm a student of sports science, and I'm a student of the mind, and I'm a student of personal growth and self-learning. I say this in everywhere that I go. Tell people this is what I am. And as a student, that word itself reminds me, grounds me, it makes me humble. It teaches me that, hey, you don't know everything. You're still on your learning journey. But once you remove yourself from that word, then what happens is you remove yourself from that learning journey altogether. Okay. And once you remove yourself from that learning journey, then you want to control that situation. When you want to control that situation, you're spiraling down a pathway that's just destined for failure. And because you don't see yourself as a student, failure is going to become your identity. And it's going to be a vicious way out of that place. Okay. So the way to reverse all of this, so to really put the brakes on any of this mental anxiety right now, is to start seeing yourself as a student of your art, whatever that is. And don't just say it privately, say it publicly, and remove yourself from the fear of being judged. Every time I say this point, someone says, yeah, but if we talk about us being a student, then, we won't be respected, we won't be doing something. And I can tell you one thing, right? I travel on the ATP tennis tour. Roger Federer calls himself a student of tennis. Rafa Nadal calls himself a student of tennis. Tony Robbins calls himself a student of personal growth. Every single person that I know who's great still calls themselves a student. Nobody thinks any less of them. It's your competence that you bring to the table that what will ultimately determine how someone sees you. So if you're not willing to work hard and you call yourself a student, then you will be like a student that fails like everyone else. But if you're willing to work hard and you call yourself a student, then you're giving yourself the mindset that's needed to succeed. Okay. And the last point that I wanted to talk to you about was that X factor that I mentioned. Now, to talk about the X factor, I want to refer to one book because I spent some time living in the ashram, and this is very, very important. The book's called the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very, very holy scripture for in Vedic sciences for Hindus. And the Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between the god Krishna and Arjuna just before the battle of Kurukshetra, which took place. Now, all of this is just semantics, but there's a particular verse that I want to break down that's very, very important for you. And that verse is verse 14 of chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita. And I won't give you the verse, but I'll give you the essence of it. In that verse, Krishna tells Arjuna there are 5 reasons why a person will be successful. And you need to remember this. This is vitally important. If you only take one thing away from this, take this away. There are 5 reasons why a person will be successful. The first reason is that it needs to be the right person for the job. Okay, so you need the right person for success to happen. Okay, the right person is who? A right person is a person who's competent in their skills and practices hard, and the person who embraces a student mentality. He's the right person. But the right person needs to be in the right place for success to happen. Okay, you take the right person, you put him in the wrong place, you'll never have success, will never happen. The third thing is the right person needs to be in the right place. And he needs to have the right tools available to him, So for example, you take a great tennis player and you put him at the French Open, but you don't give him the tennis rackets that he needs to win. The probability of him being successful is very, very slim. Okay, so the right person needs to be in the right place with the right instruments for success to materialize. The fourth variable is the right amount of effort. And this is where many of us fail. You may be the right person, you may have the right tools, you may be in the right place, but you're just not willing to work hard enough. Okay, hard work, there's really and truly no shortcut for it. Okay, and you have to put in the right amount of effort for success to finally materialize. Okay. And Krishna tells Arjuna that these 4 variables are in your control. In every human's control, you can control these 4. The 5th variable that you cannot control is called destiny, it's called faith, it's called that universal energy, that universal power. That you being in that right place at that right time, that the right person coming along to help you, the awareness of you to just cultivate that particular skill. At every single moment, there are millions of variables at play that are beyond your control that are contributing to your success. And that is the fifth variable, the universal energy called destiny or fate. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because one of the biggest stumbling blocks for growth or success in any single ecosystem is ego, right? A person's ego interjects, right? And they think they're bigger than that system and they think they're bigger than everything. Now, what is ego? Ego is the inability to recognize the fifth factor in success. Okay, when you cannot recognize that there's an energy far greater than you at play that is contributing to your success, you will cultivate what is called an ego. Okay, and humility is the flip side of that. Humility is the ability to recognize that there is an energy far greater at stake, right, that's contributing to my success. And yes, I may be the right person working exceptionally hard, but that fifth factor is vitally important. Humility recognizes that. And humility is a fundamentally important component for growth and success. Why? Because humility is the fuel for a student mentality. Humility is the fuel for empathetic, emotional connection with human beings. Humility is the fuel that grounds your energy and helps you be humble enough to ask for help when everything seems to be crumbling. Humility is what opens the gateway to a world of possibility and opportunity. Humility is what makes you realize that no matter what is happening in the world, you're not alone. You have people who are willing to help you. And humility is what gives you the courage and the strength to ask for that help when you need it. Without humility, okay, you're going to be feeling like there's a brick or a ton of bricks on your shoulder or your head every single moment of that day. Without humility, composure will elude you every second of the day. Okay. Without humility, a student mentality will be only a figment of your imagination. So humility is the X factor. The student mentality is the mindset you need to cultivate. And the three skills you need to develop are composure, your confidence, and your competence in your skill for you to thrive in any single ecosystem. So that's what I'd like to leave you with. And maybe we could take a few questions. And I hope this was enjoyable. And yeah, happy to answer some questions.
Hi, wow, amazing discussion, Shayamal. Thank you so much. I know that a lot of our media friends today have a lot of key takeaways. We appreciate the emphasis on both the body and the mindset as our means to adapt in stressful situations. Thank you also, most importantly, for breaking them down into simpler concepts for everyone. So there are the 3 C's, the importance of going back to the student mindset, the X factor, which is humility, the 5 reasons for success. Thank you. We all appreciate the learnings today. Hopefully, today's session has provided us with very useful tips on how we can better manage our anxiety to, of course, live healthier and happier. So I'm sure our media friends have many questions for you, Shayamal. So let's open a question and answer segment. Actually, I want to start first. So maybe you can share what are maybe 3 practical tips to prevent burnout in the moment, given all the perpetual triggers that can cause our anxiety. I mean, understandably, sometimes we are not in our safe space. So maybe you can share tips on how we can, address panic attacks in the moment.
So, if you're having a panic attack or if you're struggling with anxiety, the first thing is to be able to recognize that it's anxiety. Most people can't even recognize it. I've seen tons of people who are just anxious and they go and take medication and go to doctors and think they're getting a heart attack and all sorts of things like this. So understand, what does anxiety, fear, nervousness feel like in your body? What are the symptoms? And start recognizing it first. When you recognize it, then you can put an intervention in play to stop it. That intervention could possibly be breath work, like I taught you, that could be retreating to a safe space. One of the fastest ways to reduce anxiety is to also reduce that external stimulation around you. So, go into a room with sort of dim lighting, for example, with some calming music, 432 hertz, for example, 528 hertz will stimulate the neurological system and help you calm down. Breathing is always available at your disposal. And more importantly, I think it's very important for you to have a friend close by who you can speak to that can create a safe space for you to just speak. Most people who are anxious need safe space to be held for them to understand what they're processing, and then an opportunity to just speak. It may not make sense at the time, but just the mere fact that they're getting the opportunity to get it out will in itself help deal with anxiety. So these are a few things that can help.
Thank you for those three practical tips. Our next media partner who will ask is Miss Annabelle Sorara from Net25. Miss Annabelle, go ahead.
Hi po, good morning, sir.
Hi.
Yes po, good morning. My question is, what are some of the most effective ways to cultivate and practice self-awareness?
That's a very good question. Self-awareness is, as the term says, becoming aware of your body, aware of your mind, aware of your emotions, your feelings. And self-awareness is really and truly it's a science, it's a lifelong journey in itself. The American Indians say that the longest journey a person can embark on is the journey from the head to the heart. That is the journey of self-awareness, right? From stopping yourself from rationalizing every situation to really and truly feeling every situation. Now, for you to become self-aware, you need to trust yourself. You need to trust yourself to let go. You need to trust yourself to feel emotions. You need to have the courage to address what comes to the surface. Okay. You need to find the strength to hold space and not be fearful of that space. Okay. These are the important things. Now, self-awareness needs what is called self-exploration. And self-exploration needs emotional comfort. Right. Only when someone is emotionally comfortable can they explore the unknown, right? So you need to create a space of emotional comfort for you, and that can be a safe space at your home. It could be a circle of people around you. Only when you're feeling comfortable and safe will you be able to explore the unknown. And when you explore the unknown, things will come to the surface that need to be addressed. Okay, and that's a mistake that people make. Everyone seems to think that I do meditation every single day. And I said, okay, what do you do after meditation? And people are like, nothing. No, I just do my meditation for 15, 20 minutes. I said, meditation is not the end of the road. Meditation is the beginning of the journey. So everybody, it's like you go to a new house, you open the door and you stand at the front door. That's all you do. That's what meditation is standing at the front door. Why do I say this? I'm saying because you've got to the house, you've opened the key, you've turned it. That is getting into the same place, sitting and breathing. Now, what happens when you breathe is your emotions come to the surface. What are you fearful of? Your anxiety, your depression, your pain, your trauma, all of that comes to the surface. It's not going to disappear itself. It needs to be worked on. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be understood. You need to connect that emotion that you're feeling in your head to where it's sitting in your body. You need to release it from there. That's the work that needs to happen after. So meditation is just opening the door. Okay, there's a phenomenal amount of what we call integration implementation work that needs to happen for you to really enjoy the benefits of it. Otherwise, what happens is, it comes to the surface, it goes back down. It comes to the surface, it goes back down every single day. And people are like, I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm not feeling any better. You're not feeling any better because you're not processing what's coming to the front. Some people who do process it happen to speak about it, or they'll happen to hear something, or they'll get some feedback from someone, but that's a minute level of integration implementation. If you take it a little deeper and you can ask questions around it, then that's how you explore. So understand that meditation is just the key to the door. The journey is a lot deeper. The rabbit hole's long, far, and wide, and it's a beautiful journey. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Miss
much for
Annabelle.
great
Um,
response. God bless.
Thank you po, Miss Annabelle. Our next media partner, may I call on Rory Visco from Page. Sir Rory?
Hello.
Hi, Rory. How are you?
Suprabat.
Super.
Okay. In as a follow up to the self awareness issue, how important is it for company leaders or managers on how they can use it to motivate their employees and or team members?
So, the corporate world is a tricky world to navigate, and the reason I'm saying this is because uh, we are here today because Herbalife understands the importance of mental wellness and everything else. And like Herbalife, every other company understands the importance of it. The question that I ask leadership is, if you understand the importance of it and you call me to give a talk, what are the interventions that you're putting in place to help a person take it a level deeper? You understand? And I think what can happen in a corporate workplace is to start recognizing maybe leaders who potentially want to become good facilitators to help people draw awareness to what they're feeling. Maybe in your workspaces, once we go back, create safe spaces for people to just get away for 10, 15 minutes to just understand and process the emotions. To spend 8 hours at an office, to be inundated by the pressures of everyone else, of course, you're not going to be in any mental state whatsoever. You know, I think for a corporate workplace, we need to just give people space. We need to create a safe space for people to explore. We need to create safety for them to express how they feel it. You know, only when we start creating that gateway will we start seeing the gambit of emotions that exist out there and will we know what we need to do. So for corporates, the main thing for me is to be able to create a safe space for people to really talk. Identify leaders within the organization that can be good facilitators to help people on this journey. You know, besides just doing the talk. Like I said, if we say meditation is the key that opens the door only, then the same with a corporate talk. A corporate talk is just the key that opens the door. What are you doing after the door is open? You know, that is the question that a corporate needs to ask. And we need to ask every single one. So, you know what? Okay, you've invited person XYZ to come and deliver a talk. Now, what did you do in your ecosystem to allow everyone who attended that session to take those learnings a little deeper? Right? Because on one level, you're saying it's my responsibility. On another level, you're saying it's not my responsibility. So you think it's my responsibility to bring someone to help you. It's not my responsibility with how you help yourself. You understand?
Okay.
And there needs to be a more synergistic, mutualistic relationship in these two. Okay. And I think that when corporates start embracing this, you'll find a new breed of employer or employee rise up. You'll find that a person who's more loyal, a person who's more attached to the organization will start coming to the forefront. And here's something really interesting, Rory, is that for the longest time, the world is shifting, isn't it? We've seen with the rise of the millennial and Gen Z, we've seen that people want to work for organizations that have purpose. Right? We've been saying this. We use this word a lot. People want to work with organizations that have purpose. Before this trend happened, okay, we constantly said that people don't work for organizations, they work for the leader, they work for the boss. Isn't it? So no one stays at Google because of Google. People stay at Google because they got a good boss. And they leave Google because the boss was not good. Okay, but that's shifting now. That's shifting to where they're staying with organizations that have purpose. Now, what is interesting here is that emotional comfort was representative of that leader before the shift happened. That leader was the person who created emotional comfort for you to feel, and he created that ecosystem, which is why you got attached to him. So similarly, right, if an organization can create that safe space for someone to explore, the people will be attached to that organization. Because fundamentally, research has shown that beyond a salary, global salary of $70,000, there's very little increments in money that will make a person happy. $70,000 is the research that shows that ceiling, from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50, you can make lifestyle changes that will bring about happiness. But beyond that right, there's very little changes that you can do on a day-to-day basis that will incrementally increase your happiness. So we've got a plateau in terms of that. But it's emotional comfort that actually can bring about bliss, can bring about comfort. And that is a shared responsibility we have, not from an organizational point of view, but from a fellow human being, human to human. So this is what I think corporates need to do.
Okay. So you're saying that it's more of giving importance to the human needs.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
See the human.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you po, Sir Rory. May I call on Sir Peter Atencio from Manila Standard to ask the next question? Is Sir Peter there? Sige po, Sir Peter, balikan namin kayo. May I call on Gab Diaz of Manila Republic?
Hi. I just want to ask, how do we address the harmful psychological effect of using social media? Thank you.
Yeah, so social media provides what's called a distraction, isn't it? And it's a distraction because it's projecting what you don't have. That's the fundamental problem. And it's driving that same emotion like fear. You're looking into the future, you want something, but you don't have it yet. So it's driving that. It's constantly putting in front of you that which you do not have. So social media also has a phenomenal amount of benefits. For example, it's creating access to news, it's creating access to environments, it's doing that. So I think the fundamental difference, I use a lot of social media, I put content out on social media, but I think the one thing that a person should do is they should be more mindful of who they choose to follow on social media. That's the only thing you need to do. If somebody is not raising your self-worth, if somebody is not making you feel good about yourself, if they're posting content or sharing images, sharing pictures that are making you see the lack in your life as opposed to drive gratitude in your life, then you shouldn't be following that person. So it isn't social media that is actually creating a mental health problem. It's your choice of the person you're choosing to follow on social media that's actually creating that. Because anything, it's like, if you're going to blame social media for mental health issues, right, then social media is a tool. It's like a scalpel. A scalpel in the hand of a serial killer will take 100 lives. A scalpel in the hand of a surgeon will save 100 lives. It's a tool, right? Now, a person has a choice of how to use that tool. Similarly, social media is a tool. You have a choice of how to use it. So I think the message that needs to go forward all the time is become mindfully aware of who you choose to follow, right? Be mindfully aware of, is the people and are the channels that I'm following, are they making me feel good about myself? Are they raising my confidence? Are they teaching me new skills? Are they calming me down? Or are they showing me only what I don't have and making me feel so incompetent and so insignificant in this world that I don't want to even be a part of this world? Right? That's the choice, and that is the only message that needs to go forward all the time. It's very hard to, if we start going down the line of blaming social media for mental health problems, then why aren't we blaming capitalism? Because Capitalism is the same thing that's driving mental health issues. Corporate world is driving mental health issues. Climate change can drive anything under the world. It's a rabbit hole that will never end. And that's why I'm saying we have to start teaching people that the power to make a decision is in your hands. Always in your hands, and give it to them. And drive that forward consistently over and over and over again.
Thank you, Shayama. Thank you, Gab. May I call on Peter Atencio from Manila Standard?
Hello, good morning, sir. Here's my question. How do athletes overcome sports performance anxiety, especially with the Tokyo Olympics scheduled to proceed this month? How can Filipino athletes strategize for the tournament and operate in the new environment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with athletes, we train ourselves. Sorry, Mike. So with athletes, we train ourselves to operate in these environments. We are changing. And as a coach with a professional athlete, what I'm doing is I am bringing a stress to every single training system. So like, for example, right now as a journalist, hey, you got a certain, you have your ecosystem of where you write. You have your ecosystem of who gives you information. You have your deadlines in that system, right? You know what those deadlines are on a day-to-day basis, and you operate within this framework. Okay, your ecosystem's very set. Now, you don't have, maybe something will change really where someone will jump into this ecosystem and say, okay, you need to jump into this ecosystem and you need to do this a little bit quicker. They bring in a different level of change. Now, what they're doing is what a coach does every single day for an athlete. Every single training session for an athlete, I keep 70% of it the same, but 30% of it I'm changing. I'm changing and teaching them how to adapt under pressure, with stress, with anxiety, with changing variables. Every single day I'm teaching them how to do that. And so that's how they learn the art of radical adaptability in an ecosystem. The problem is most people don't have coaches and most people don't have a person who's changing the ecosystem, so they don't understand the ability of adaptability in these ever-changing ecosystems. So what is an athlete's core skill is, from the time they're 14 or 15 years old, they are constantly in environments that are changing. In fact, change is such a part and parcel of who they are that if you put an athlete in the same environment for 1 month, he'll go depressed. He thrives in change and he gets depressed in stagnation. The rest of the world thrives in stagnation and gets depressed with change. This is the difference. So when you talk about the Tokyo Olympics, I think this Tokyo Olympics now, if it goes on, I mean, they've already positive cases of COVID in the Olympic Village as we speak. If this Olympics goes to fruition, we are going to see probably more world records and Olympic records broken in this Olympics in quantum than we've ever seen before. That's my prediction. The reason I'm saying this is because so much of external stress doesn't exist anymore. You media guys are not there. Everything is done remotely. There's no stadium pressure. There's no stress pressure. There's no traffic pressure. There's no fan pressure. There's nothing. You just go and you perform. So the competition area is mimicking the practice environment so closely that the body is going to be calm. And what did I say? The first variable to thriving is composure, right? And composure is going to be in this Olympics like we've never seen it in any other Olympics right now. So I predict that we're going to see a high probability of world records and Olympic records broken than ever before. because there's going to be more composure in that ecosystem. So that's my prediction for the Olympics. And this is what is the difference between athletes and everyone else with respect to high performance. I hope that helped.
Thank you po, Sir Peter. May I call on Sir Rocky Batara from lifestyleportal.com for the next question. Sir Rocky, go ahead.
Hello po. Hello. I just unmute.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello.
Hey, Rocky.
Hello.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. And I learned a lot from your talks earlier.
Thanks.
Yes. So, we are currently staying at home, working from home for more than 1 year now. And soon we will going back to our respective offices and to our usual normal routines. Now, my question goes, how do we deal with the fears and anxieties of returning to the traditional work environment and in-person interaction?
Yeah, I don't think the work environment is going to be the same. And I think if you're going into what you think is going to be the exact same environment, that environment shouldn't be the same. I think the new work world is going to look completely different. I think the new corporate office is going to be a place for social networking and engagement more than actually work.
Yeah.
What we've realized is that a person can work remotely from wherever they are and they can be highly productive and they can deliver what is needed, right? But what we don't have from that environment is social emotional connection. So the workplace is going to be a place that's redesigned for social emotional connection. That's going to allow people to get to know each other better. That's going to create safe spaces for that. And if a workplace doesn't adapt to that, then its employee will be depressed in that space. Why? Because the world of balance will not exist. It'll be so closely merged from them working in home to working environment. Just the environment will change, but they wouldn't understand when to switch off. Okay, that the person will fundamentally get depressed. So I think as we move into the new world right now, the employees that are happy to make that transition the quickest will be those that are moving into spaces that are promoting social engagement and creating space for that, as opposed to people are keeping the environments the same and looking for employees to just thrive in that environment. Okay. With respect to how does someone move forward with communication, right now, it comes down to the topic we've been talking about, which is self-awareness more than anything else. It comes down to competence, right? So it's really about drawing your awareness to what it is that you want to share and how it is that you want to talk. Okay. Most people have not had the ability to draw their awareness to their feelings. They've not had anyone to speak to, So what it is about really getting comfortable with that. It's really about stilling the mind, drawing your awareness, finding clarity about what you want to say and how you want to say it. Right. And once you have that clarity, then the method of it coming out will be very, very easy. A lot of the times I tell people, we get lost in the how as opposed to staying focused on the why. Why do you want to do that? We get lost in how we want to do it. So for example, the easiest way to explain this is fitness. A lot of people want to get fit, right? The why is I want to get fit because it'll give me a better life. The how is, do I do Zumba? Do I do CrossFit? Do I run? Do I cycle? And so many people get lost in not being able to pick with this, that the main goal of getting fit never happens. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that if the main goal of understanding that I want to make a happy, healthy integration into my workspace, if I want to make a safe emotional integration, and I want to be able to express myself better, stays core, then the how will find itself. One day you'll try this, the next day you'll try that, you'll do different things, you'll find the right how. As long as you understand the why. But when you don't understand the why, because you don't get the biofeedback from a certain type of how, you lose hope.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So this is the only way to help someone move forward in this world, is to help them just draw their awareness to how they feel and what they want to communicate. Right? When you understand what you want to communicate, you'll be able to communicate. And Rocky, think of a baby, right? I mean, do you have any kids? Are you married? Do you have kids?
I have
No. You have kids. Okay, good. So when your child was 1 year old or 2 years old, they couldn't speak. Okay, he wasn't talking. But when they wanted something, they found a way to tell you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, is that when you understand when the baby knows I want food, when the baby knows I want my diaper changed, somehow it didn't even speak the language that you understood, but somehow you got the message.
Usually body
Isn't it?
language. Body
It's
language
not
or
about the language.
signs. Yes.
It's about understanding what it is we want to contribute. Okay. Cool.
Thank you, Sir Rocky.
Thank you.
May I call on, we're down to our last two questions, so may I call on Sir Dave Achanda from Mindanao Gold Star Daily.
Okay. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Dave.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good.
I have one question or two questions. Anyway,
Go ahead.
Anything, just ask it. Yeah.
sir, do you believe that the worst enemy you can meet will always be yourself? If yes, then how do we silence this inner critic?
So the worst enemy will always be yourself, for sure. And the only way to silence it is by being mindful of the people you surround yourself by. That's it. So for example, if you are lacking confidence and you surround yourself with 5 people who don't raise your confidence or don't show you what you're good at or don't support you, you'll remain in that space forever. Right? If you are not surrounded by people who have a vested interest in moving you in that right direction, you're stuck where you are. Now, the problem is when we say the worst enemy is yourself, it's not like we have an option, right? Why? Because the brain works in such a way that it will consistently highlight mistakes that we make. And that's the brain's neurobiology of protection. It will highlight a mistake that you make because it wants to protect you from repeating that mistake. Okay, so it has to do that. It has to bring your error to the front to protect you. Okay, the thing is, sometimes we can move past that, and we can move past that by getting the right amount of stimulus from the environment, and the stimulus comes in from the people we surround ourselves by. Right? So the only way to circumnavigate you self-sabotaging yourself on a day-to-day basis is by having a really amazing support network of people around you. People who know how good you are, people who are willing to bring love and compassion and support you, people are willing to pick you up from that down space, people who are competent and successful in their lives so that when you see what they're doing, they also inspire you to do that. People who not constantly watching the clock, people who are giving you space and giving you time. So the people you surround yourself with is the easiest and the safest way to circumnavigate you self-sabotaging your own growth.
I have a last question. COVID-19 has made a lot of people's lives really difficult and stressful lately, and some are even back in the corner. And we get reports from all over Mindanao of COVID-19 related suicides. What advice can you give to them?
Yeah, so suicide's a really, it's a really sensitive topic. And I can tell you one thing, when someone is at that brink of considering suicide, you must know that almost every other option that they've thought of has failed. They literally left with no other option, because contrary to what people think, it's not cowardly when you take your own life. The pain is so high, and the point that they've come to that decision is so strong that they see that as the only option left. It's quite remarkable form of psyche, and I feel that the way to help people like this is, we have to somehow make the options available to them more easily available. The options of talking, the options of help, the options of guidance. We think we're doing work, but clearly the work we're doing is falling on deaf ears if the rate of suicide is still going up. Okay. The second thing is, look at who are the people who consider it. We find a high level of suicide amongst, teens, amongst people who are just graduating from college. Their lives haven't even started, and yet they find no other option. Okay. And these are the people we need to bring some guidance to. We need to bring a little bit of courage to that. Hey, yeah, it may be a little difficult, but we need to help them in some shape and form. And they have nothing to fall back on, because it's hard to say they have a foot in the door. Like, for example, if any one of the media guys right now, if you get fired from your job or your company shuts down, the door is open for you, which means that you've worked for so long that your colleagues are just a call away, for you to find another opportunity. Think of a kid who's 21 years old, who's just studied for 4 years, come out of college, he's never worked. The door is not even left open. He doesn't even know where to start to make a call. You understand? That's what we need to do, is we need to ground for them. They feel like the options available to them aren't really options, which is not true. Right? But I feel for them because we have failed in our responsibility to show them that the options exist clearly. That's our failure, not theirs. And we have to see it like that. We have to take more responsibility, and we have to see that if that statistic's going up, we have failed to do our part as a community in creating a safe space for them to explore options that exist out there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Dave, for that question. Our last question is from Miss Irene Perez from Philippine Daily Inquirer, and I will ask on her behalf. In terms of thriving during the pandemic and facing our fears, how does one get out of the comfort zone in terms of career or sports?
You need a coach. It's very hard for you to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Very, very difficult. You need someone else to push you out of your comfort zone. That's what we do every single day. I push all my corporate executives, my CEOs, everyone. I specialize in pushing people out of the comfort zone. That's it. I make them work harder, I make them train harder, I make them try something else. And what are the comfort zones? Comfort zones could be, for example, for an athlete, it's pushing your body harder. For a corporate person, it's challenging your working system. Sometimes I'm pushing people out of the comfort zone. For example, if you've had an unhealthy relationship with a family member, your comfort zone is addressing that pain. I'm pushing you out of it. I'm forcing you to address that. Why? Because everything you slip away and hide away is sabotaging your growth somewhere else. Okay, so your inability to address your pain in your own personal relationships is sabotaging your chance of growth in the corporate world or in life or in anywhere.
Thank you, Shayamal. I think those are all the questions that we have for today in the interest of time. Thank you again. We are very overwhelmed and grateful for all the learnings. And of course, thank you to all our media friends as well. May we ask Shayamal to share one final message to all of us who are here today? Hi, Shayamal.
think his internet got disconnected.
No.
We'll just wait. He should join. I think it got.
Let's wait for a few minutes, and then Laika, standby for photo op later.
Anna, can you check with our secretary? Just quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
I've messaged Dipali.
Shayamal is back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Shayamal, yeah, it's okay. Maybe just ask for your final message to all of us here today before we close and wrap up the program.
No final message. I've been giving all my messages over. So there's no, I mean, whatever I said, just take it in, remember the competence, confidence, composure, very important. Remember the breathwork practice. Try to cultivate humility and try to cultivate the student mentality. I think once we understand that, it's fine. I mean, to anyone who wants to get in touch, you can obviously write to me on Instagram. My handle is @Shamal. Dipali will post it on the chat, or a lot of the things that I spoke about are there. If you need any guidance in any shape and form, please feel free to write to me. And I have lots of videos also on YouTube where I talk about a lot of these things. Please help me just spread the word. Let's amongst.
Sure. I think we lost him again. Anyway. Thank you everyone for attending. Before we go, may we ask for quick feedback on today's session? Brian, can you bring up the poll for the media to answer? So, gusto lang po namin makuha yung feedback ninyo kung ayan. So, how satisfied are you with the event and how satisfied are you with the guest speaker? 100%. Thank you, Shayamal. I'm sure our media friends have definitely learned a lot in today's discussion. All right. Thank you. May we ask for one final group photo op? May I ask our media friends to turn on their cameras so that we can have a quick group photo with Shayamal. Laika, please stand by. Nice to see all your faces. Good morning. Smile po.
Please turn on your cameras po. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Smile, everyone. Another. Smile, everyone. Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Shayama. Thank you, everyone. To all our attendees, you will get a mini wellness kit with our Herbalife Nutrition Herbal Concentrate Tea, which comes with a special